if we're talking about the lumbar spine in particular, because it's still taught, as far as spinal flexion being an injury mechanism, and that as a standalone is taken to, then we shouldn't flex our spine. Ergo, spinal flexion is bad. With the adaptability concept in mind, what your thoughts on teaching lifting technique from somebody who's not necessarily a lifter? So I think we're all on the same page that biomechanics matters from a performance perspective, force transfer, all these things. We start talking about injury risk and potential sensitization, maybe over time with some positions versus others. If you had a newbie in front of you who had a job to lift things, what is your approach in regards to spinal position? Long-winded question.
Yeah, no. I would say don't worry about it. Work on figuring out the way that you can lift the most weight the easiest, and that's where I think coaches are excellent. That's why I like good strength coaches, and I'm not one of them. I'm more into like programming and stuff like that. I'm not like a powerlifting coach, that's for sure. Where a good coach will look at the person and be like, okay, these are your options on how to lift. And that's why it's so interesting when you see good lifters, how there's so much variability, right? And some of it's anatomically based and all that. So I would assume someone who has a job when they have to lift over and over, teach them, they're probably still going to use their hips and, get their ass back and down and things like that. But don't think about the spine flexion. You'll use your spine position to get the rest of your body parts in the best position to produce force. And then I would say with our occupational athletes like that, probably the more important thing, and we see this in the literature, is that they're prepared to lift. That's why, like on the Cochrane reviews, they have interventions where they go and teach people how to lift to do their job. Those things in general don't seem to decrease low back pain. But when they go in and add exercise programs and build up these people and their resiliency, that seems to decrease pain. Right. So it's not the technique, it's the preparation that maybe seems more important. Yeah. That's my thoughts on the occupational lifter. If that what you meant? Like someone has a job has to lift shit?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's the thrust. Don't worry about the spine position. Get the spine position in the position that allows you to produce the most force, the most easily, with the most ease.
Is it kind of one of those things where you can find a starting point, like the traditional, just kind of flat, just kind of pat people on the back and just tight, just stay right here, keep that where it is, or something like that, just in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then let the patterns emerge from there. Just take a step back, see what they do over time with increased load or increased stress, speed, whatever it is, or volume, something like that. If things start to become inefficient,
something,
then you step in, intervene, something simple, step back, let the patterns emerge. And, that's a process of preparation right there. But it sounds like your point is you're not putting them in the optimal position because there may not actually be one to begin with. Yeah. And you're also not worried about necessarily keeping them there in this rigid pattern over time.
Yeah. I mean, like you're not going to, if you're going to lift the most weight from the floor, no one's going to choose, you're not going to Jefferson curl, right? So although the spine's fully flexed in those positions, there are biomechanics that are important to produce more force. You want to get your hips back and down and all of those things, but just don't get caught up on the spine position. That's probably not important. But I would say, like guys like you that work with athletes to produce more force, I'm not sure everything is like, I don't know these terms, the self-organizing system. I don't know if it's just fully emergent that people can figure it out on their own. Mm-hmm. Just me learning gymnastics as an adult, right? I can watch as many YouTube videos as I want. It helps. But I was like, today I really needed a coach who was helping me figure out a way to do a certain movement. It wasn't coming on my own, right? So I'm not always sure that it's like self-emergent or that the best way to do it. We all figure it out. So there's still a role for coaching and physios and all that stuff. Totally.
If a student reads one of your articles, watches one of your videos, listens to you talk here, maybe even goes to your course and comes away with the notion that biomechanics now don't matter, what's the biggest thing that's being misinterpreted? Where does the pendulum swing too far?
Yeah, if they come up with that conclusion, then I've done it wrong. That's my fault then. Or they probably if that ever I have had people do that, but then they haven't really read my stuff. That's the thing. Or they have a preconceived idea of what I'm going to say, and then they just skim my blogs and stuff like that. So if they come up with that, what they're missing here is what I'm saying is the biomechanics that you think matters. Those ones don't matter, but there are other ones that are important. That's what I'm saying. Like I find it's the biomechanical research itself that contradicts the status quo of the biomechanical like ideas that we have out there. I think if you know the biomechanics really well, then you start questioning what so many people talk or teach and accept. So I'm saying biomechanics are important, just not the ones that you think are important.
It also sounds like you're saying that it's very context dependent too. So it's hard to pass or have these overarching statements that hold true for everybody in every situation, because it's probably going to vary quite a lot.
Yeah, it's true. And I agree with Stu McMillan, who he doesn't like the term "it depends." You know,
okay.
He always says that, and he's like, "Fine, it depends." So give me the situation why it does depend. And so I always try to do that. Like with the shoulder, I don't really care too much about scapular position and scapular kinematics. But at the same time, I think that theory led us to training the scapulothoracic muscles and the rotator cuff, and that seems to be helpful for a lot of shoulder pain. But it doesn't change scapular position. So to me, the mechanics don't matter, but the training impetus to train that whole region and train comprehensively, that's a really good thing to do. So the mechanics are still important here, just not how you move is the most important. Or if it hurts to do something, well, dumbass, don't do that. Like change your mechanics temporarily. And then if you're open to the movement optimism idea, then you can start doing weird things or different things with your shoulder. Keep moving, it desensitizes, and then you can go back to moving however you like.